Going back now a little, you've done a lot of work with flash mobs. Did you see them as a viral campaign, or was it just a simple idea that kind of expanded through the social media?
So, I mean, I wouldn't say this was before social media. This was kind of an email based thing that we did. And I guess this was in 2002, 2001, when we first heard about flash mobs, before we ever knew who the main guy was who had started them. And I think at the end, he ended up being one of the main editors for New York Magazine, possibly. Anyway, but back in the day, nobody knew who this guy was that was starting them in New York. And so very shortly thereafter, it kind of spread to a couple other cities, and we were one of the first cities that did them. So it was me and another guy, who was a friend of mine, David was his name, and this is maybe one of the first ways, but it's really like it's the kind of experimentation process within an environment and sort of understanding how crowds behave. At the center of it, Howard Rheingold had written a book which was titled Smart Mobs back in the day. And so he was kind of at the center of it all. But I mean, it's kind of like part art and part social experiments. And so since then, it's kind of been embraced in many ways. The same way that Twitter and the status updates now can be like, okay, we're all going to do this. Like Doctors Without Borders has an account, and they could make a ton of people aware of something. The same way that they opened up the airports in Haiti back during the crisis, they do this through Twitter by harassing and just mentioning, like talking to the U.S. Department of Defense, I think, during this crisis. They literally were able to open up the airports so they could bring in their mobile hospitals that they have, these inflatable hospitals. So it's a similar kind of behavior. It's kind of a crowd behavior, the idea that we talk about in Trust Agents of building an army. And if you're able to effectively do that, you have a ton of power. It's a way of understanding and exploiting systems while being able to stay in touch with humans in an effective way. So you're able to. The web is a very big place. The world is a very big place. Unfortunately, we need massive amounts of people in order to be able to have any impact on any social cause or on any political cause or whatever you happen to care about. That requires understanding what will bring people together and what won't.
So, we all know that the interwebs is jam-packed full of time-wasting websites. What sites do you visit first thing in the morning and the last thing at night?
So the first website that I ever go to in the morning is reddit.com. Okay? And Reddit is like in some ways a beautiful, amazing example of what the social web is about. It's just text and links. My favorite section of the site is Ask Reddit, which is a sort of different section of the site. And people ask themselves questions like, for example, anyone else regularly drink but has never driven even semi-drunk in their entire lives? Who hates that awkward distance in holding a door for someone between if you should hold the door and have them jog to the door, or if you don't hold it and seem like a jackass? So it's different every day. Things get voted up or voted down, and sometimes they're absurd and sometimes they're really serious and interesting. But it's a perfect example of people coming together almost for no reason at all, other than the fact that the community works for them and is interesting. And I go to this site literally like it's the first thing I do in the morning. It's probably the last thing I do at night. And I must go to the site like 20, 25 times a day. So every time, as you might see on Twitter, like Chris is sending me a thing. Have you ever seen this video, or have you ever seen this or whatever? And the answer is inevitably yes. And the answer is because of Reddit.
You mentioned earlier that you and Chris were working on a new book. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
We try. We're not allowed to because our publisher, not our publisher, our agent tells us we're not. You should never talk about a book beforehand. But we obviously don't talk about the social web exclusively. We're not exclusively about the social web. Chris and I have a lot in common, separate from that, and that's probably why we ended up writing a book together in the first place. So it heads in a direction that is more about understanding this is the same thing about the web, where you see, well, what sort of behaviors and what things make people successful and are interesting to people and which people can kind of like have on their own. This is a similar thing, but it's more taken away from the web environment, and it's looking at it and saying, okay, so what small behaviors can we change? What attitudes can we change where people have radical leaps in their success, and how can we find effective ways to do that?
And finally, mate, do you have any advice for our trainees?
There are answers, there are questions and answers going around the water cooler, discussions that people have naturally all the time about any kind of inane subject, whatever that happens to be. Those conversations are occurring. They used to happen around the water cooler and in bars, and now they happen on Twitter, etc. So the answer to the question is to find those places where people are already talking about it. Whatever industry you're in, I don't care if you sell organic $50 soaps made from the fat of old women's liposuction or something like that. I don't care if that's what you do. There are people having these conversations, and they're having them right now, and they would like to talk to you. So it goes back to this idea of listening at the point of need. If I'm walking around, Montreal, where I am right now, and in the next couple hours I have nothing to do, and I'm in a certain neighborhood, I am making, through my status updates, I'm making people and companies aware of this. And if they have the ability to find me, which they do, and they have the ability to know where I am and all these things, they should have the ability to contact me and say, come and stop by because we have this. And they should know what's interesting to me. If they do that in an automated way, like Starbucks is doing right now on Foursquare, then it's spam. But if they do it in a personalized way, which once again involves a certain amount of sacrifice, i.e. can't be scaled in the same way, then it is seen as human behavior, and then I react appropriately. I've gone to businesses and done this, local businesses, and when they reach out to me, I always come back and end up, over time, kind of going there regularly. I have examples in my very own neighborhood. And so conversations are occurring in which there is a connection either by location or by interest. And that is as true for the local car dealer as it is for the organic grocery store, as it is for the butcher that I visit at the market, as it is for almost any business. Local, it's almost better because there really is a human face, and it is the owner, which is always what we recommend. So the answer is conversations are occurring everywhere. Find the places where you can search for that or where you can get access to those people and talk to them directly, and you have future customers. That's unquestionable. It just becomes a matter of developing those relationships and being able to entice them.